Hi everybody, this is Delaney again, and I've decided to change shirts. I thought y'all would get tired of seeing me in my brown flannel. But anyways, what I wanted to talk about today was why I wrote my first book, The Calm Before the Storm, a stroke survivor story. Ever since I was a little girl, I knew I wanted to write a book about something. The question was, what was that something? So as I was laying in my hospital bed, couldn't talk, couldn't move, it dawned on me that this story, these things that were happening to me, both funny and sad, it almost seemed selfish to keep all of this to myself. So I told myself in my head, whenever I get done with all of this crap and get home and get settled, the first thing I'm going to do is write a book. And that is exactly what I did. I came home at the end of September 30th of 2012, finally. And in October, I started writing. And I think it took several months. And I wanted to write because, number one, I didn't want to forget the details. They were going to slip through my head pretty easily. Secondly, it was therapeutic for me. People are always asking me, why are you trying to rehash this stuff? Get on with your life. Everybody deals with stroke differently. I've met other stroke survivors who like to keep quiet and be personal about everything. I've met others who like to get it all out and will talk to anybody who will listen. Well, that's me. So the book basically, it talks about what my life was like before, what I was involved in, what I did on a daily basis, to what actually happened during my stroke. I talk step by step what it was like to have a stroke, how it felt while the stroke was going on, to whatever I was in the hospital and I was intubated or incubated, however they pronounce it, with a big tube down my throat, and how I felt whenever all these conversations were going on around me and I could not join in, and I was stuck inside my head, and that was the only person I had to talk to was myself. It takes you through the ICU. It talks about what it was like to be in a subacute hospital whenever therapy started. I have a lot of bedpan stories because, believe me, I got very, very used to the bedpan. I had good things and bad things. I have one chapter in my book is called Stopped Up, which is about exactly what it sounds like. I was stopped up and what they had to do to basically take care of everything. What it was like whenever I first got a shower. When I first started walking, when I first started talking, when I first got to eat applesauce, which I am so sick of now, I won't touch the stuff. And then it goes into whenever I was transferred to my inpatient rehab, where they really start working you and they really start getting you to walk using the walker, getting you out. I remember the first time I went to Cracker Barrel on this special bus and what that was like, trying to get out in the real world and how things were not what I expected them to be. Then coming home, we had to stay with my mother-in-law for a little bit because for a variety of reasons, it was just easier to transition there first before I was able to come home. I was in a day rehab program for a month. So what that was like, where they basically worked you all day from 8 to 4 with all types of physical, occupational, speech therapy. What that was like to actually be out of a hospital setting and be on my own and scared to death. I didn't know anybody, didn't have any family members there. And that was my first step of really entering the real world. Then I talk about where, again, I had this image in my head of returning home, everything being hunky-dory, getting my old life back. And it didn't happen that way. I remember the first night my son, who hadn't seen me for 3 months, wanted me to cuddle it a little bit longer before he wanted to go to bed. I saw no problem with that because he hadn't seen his mom in a long time. My husband disagreed. He wanted a regular routine where my son had to go to bed. And this resulted in my first, to my knowledge, pseudobulbar effect or PBA episode, where I started crying, I started wailing. I got very, very upset over a very simple issue. And this started me on my PBA journey, which I'll talk about in another video. But we finally were able to get home. I was still doing outpatient therapy, probably 2 to 3 times a week. And it wasn't until, and I talk about this in the book, where, again, the real world, this image in my head, was not happening. I wasn't the same. The kids didn't have the same mommy. My husband had to basically get used to this new woman. We've been married for 11 years, and I was not back to taking care of the laundry, paying the bills, vacuuming the house. I mean, all that was falling on him. And so some of the stresses that came with that, because he was still working at the time. But I wrote this book to help others who have gone through similar situations, where it be a stroke, traumatic brain injury, cancer, any type of bad situation, to let them know. And I used to tell this to my mom when I was in rehab. This is only temporary. Everything in life passes. Things change. Sometimes that's hard, but there are things that you have to deal with. And as a young stroke survivor, I'm only 37. I've still got a lot of living to do, hopefully. And I didn't want my life to stop. I didn't want to become a couch potato. So this is what has started me on my track to where I go to different churches. I go to schools. I went back to the school where I taught and actually had the opportunity to talk to the students who I taught that day of the stroke. And they wondered, well, why in the world, what happened to Mrs. Stevenson? That was very interesting. I've talked to nurses. I think I mentioned I talked to the neuroscience unit where I first was and gave them my side of the story and what it's like to be a patient that can't talk but is still cognizant of everything that is going on. Just this book, the verse Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, is really, really true. And I've always liked that verse. And, I mean, it's the truth. You can't do anything without God, without your own willpower. And you've got, I know that days can be down for stroke survivors. Everybody has down days. I don't care if you've had a stroke or if your husband left you or if you're going through an abusive situation or something bad happened at work or you got in a car accident or somebody looked at you the wrong way. We all have bad things that happen to us. But my point is, don't ever give up. And that's the reason why I wrote this book. Again, to help both stroke survivors and caregivers. This is really good for caregivers. My mom has read this book she took a lot of care of me whenever I was in and out of the hospital, to give them an idea of what us stroke survivors are going through, what's going through our head, things that we have to experience, because unless you've been through it, you really don't understand. So if you are interested, and this is not a advertising or marketing plug, but I'm just telling you, I've had a lot of really, really good reports back on this book that it's been very, very helpful from hospitals, stroke support groups, things of that nature. So it's called The Calm Before the Storm, A Stroke Survivor's Story by myself, by Delaney Stevenson. It is available on Amazon, so just look it up. The Calm Before the Storm. My name, Delaney Stevenson. And you can download it as an ebook. You can also get the hard copy, paper copy. And I hope for those of you who decide to buy it that it helped you. And that's why I wrote my first book. So thanks. Y'all have a good day, and I'll talk to you later.